A short analysis of Mark Antony's Friends, Romans, Countrymen speech. By Oliver Tyrrell, Loughborough University. Mark Antony's Friends, Romans, Countrymen speech from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar is a masterclass of irony and the way rhetoric can be used to say one thing but imply something quite different without ever naming it. Mark Antony delivers a funeral speech for Julius Caesar following Caesar's assassination at the hands of Brutus and the conspirators, but he is only allowed to do so as long as he does not badmouth the conspirators for their role in Caesar's death. Antony's references to Brutus as an honorable man subtly and ingeniously show that Brutus is anything but honorable, while also serving to show that Caesar was not the ambitious man Brutus has painted him to be. The best way to analyze this key speech from the play is to go through it, summarizing it section by section. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Immediately we see Mark Antony's brilliant rhetorical skills, which he uses to get the crowd on side. As David Daniel observes in his note to that opening line, Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, Mark Antony begins with the more intimate address friends, before moving from the personal to the national, a move that, for Daniel, is reinforced by expansion, friends, 1 syllable, Romans, 2 syllables, countrymen, 3 syllables. See Julius Caesar, the ardent Shakespeare. We thoroughly recommend this edition of Julius Caesar, by the way. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. Mark Antony has read the room and knows the mood among the crowd. They still support the assassination of Julius Caesar and so side with Brutus and the other conspirators. Mark Antony treads carefully, brilliantly going against their expectations and reassuring him that he is simply there to deliver a funeral oration. Not to take the dead general's side, it's worth remembering that Julius Caesar was a general, not an emperor. Although he was called Caesar, he wasn't a Caesar, the name given to later emperors of Rome in his honor. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. Daniel notes helpfully that these lines, which have become much more famous thanks to Shakespeare's play, are proverbial and their sentiment, albeit with different wording, predate Shakespeare. The meaning is obvious enough. When people die, the bad things they did often stick in people's memories, while their good deeds are forgotten. As Antony goes on to say, so let it be with Caesar. Immediately, then, he is cleverly saying that he is happy for everyone to focus on Caesar's bad points and forget the good the man did, but in referring to the latter, he is subtly reminding them that Caesar did good as well as evil things. By the way, a note on scansion or meter. Because Mark Antony is addressing the crowd using blank verse or unrhymed iambic pentameter, interred should be pronounced as 3 syllables, not 2. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault. And grievously hath Caesar answered it. Mark Antony now takes up Brutus' words about Julius Caesar and responds to them. He doesn't contradict Brutus, but instead uses the subjunctive if it were so. He refuses to say that Caesar was ambitious, but grants that if it were true, it was a terrible fault. The purpose of this is to cast doubt on the very idea that Caesar was ambitious, supposedly the very reason for his assassination, but in such a way that doesn't rub the crowd, which still supports Brutus, up the wrong way. He then goes on to point out, however, that if Caesar was ambitious, he's now dead, so has answered or paid the penalty for his fault. Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest. For Brutus is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. Mark Antony makes a performative gesture to Brutus' supposed generosity in letting him, Mark Antony, speak at Caesar's funeral. He says that such generosity is a sign of Brutus' honor. He, and the rest of the conspirators, are honorable men. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious. And Brutus is an honorable man. Antony now slowly begins to ease in some praise for Caesar, but keeps it personal to him, rather than making grand, universal statements about Caesar's good qualities. He was his friend, and faithful, and just to him. But then, Brutus says Caesar was ambitious, and Brutus is honorable, so I guess I was wrong, but I know I'm not. Obviously this last bit is implied, not spoken aloud, but that's what Mark Antony is building towards. He hath brought many captives home to Rome. Whose ransoms did the general coffers fill? Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? Let's look at what Caesar did. He took many enemies prisoner and brought them here to Rome, and these captives' ransoms, when paid, helped to make Rome rich. Does this seem ambitious behavior to you? When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious. And Brutus is an honorable man. When the poor of the city suffered, Caesar wept with pity for them. Hardly the actions of an ambitious man, who should be harder-hearted than this. But Brutus says Caesar was ambitious, and Brutus is honorable, so, it must be true, right? Note how Antony continues to sow the seeds of doubt in the crowd's mind. You all did see that on the Lupercal. I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious. And, sure, he is an honorable man. Antony reminds the Romans that at the festival of Lupercalia, held in mid-February, around the same time as our modern Valentine's Day, so just a month before Caesar was assassinated, he publicly presented Julius Caesar with a crown, but Caesar refused it 3 times. Remember, he was just a general, a military leader, not an emperor. Again, Antony appeals to the crowd. Does this seem like the action of an ambitious man? I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. Although he clearly is disproving what Brutus claimed of Caesar, Antony maintains that this isn't his aim, he's merely telling the truth based on what he knows of Caesar. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then, to mourn for him? Antony reminds the crowd of Romans that they all loved Caesar once too, and they had reasons for doing so. Caesar was clearly a good leader. So why do they now not mourn for him in death? Note Antony's skillful use of cause twice here. They loved Caesar with good cause, but what cause is responsible for their failure to shed a tear at his passing? O judgment! Thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me. Observe the clever pun on Brutus' name in brutish beasts. Antony stops short of calling Brutus a beast, but it's clear enough that he thinks the crowd has been manipulated with violent thugs and everyone has lost their ability to think rationally about Caesar. The mob spirit has been fomented and everyone has made Caesar, even in death, the target of their hatred. Mark Antony brings his friends, Romans, countrymen speech, a masterly piece of oratory, to a rousing end with an appeal to personal emotion, claiming that seeing Rome so corrupted by hatred and blinded by unreason has broken his heart. He concludes, however, with a final line that offers a glimmer of hope, implying that if Rome would only recover itself, he would be all right again.